Good evening. I am Peggy LaFrance of the NAACP. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. Tonight's candidate forum is County Board of Champaign County. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. Consequently, we are not accepting questions concurrently with the forum. Questions have been submitted previously. Similar questions which have been permitted have been grouped together, and consequently, your question may not be asked in precisely the way you submitted it. Due to limited time, we may not be able to get to all of the submitted questions. This forum is being broadcast on the League's Facebook live stream and also by Illinois Public Media via their Facebook page. After the forum, it will be available on the League's YouTube channel. Yes, we have a YouTube channel, and it will also be broadcast by UPTV. The UPTV schedule is available on the City of Urbana website. It will also be available on Vote Champaign website with the candidates' other information. I will be the moderator for this forum. The order for candidates is alphabetical. Therefore, Jordan Humphrey, Democrat, will open and John Rector, Republican, will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask submitted questions prior to the forum, and candidates will each have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from any negative attacks on the other candidate, will not mention the other candidate by name, and will speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. Shall we begin, Mr. Humphrey? Please unmute. Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to kick us off by thanking the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, and the News Gazette for hosting this event, and especially for hosting it via live stream so that we can all maintain social distancing. I really appreciate that. My name is Jordan Humphrey, and I'm running for County Board District 5. It contains a large part of West Champaign, going west from Duncan all the way out to Bonneville, and then a large portion of area just south of Parkland College. I was born and raised in District 5 on William Street. I literally went to school and could walk to school pretty much my entire youth. I went to school at Kenwood, then Jefferson, and then Centennial. And then I was a student trustee at Parkland College until I graduated and went to the University of Illinois at Springfield to study political science and government. I then served for about 10 years as a nonprofit and political organizer before coming back to start my family in my hometown. When I'm not serving my community through homeless and minority advocacy, I work as a residential instructor for a nonprofit organization that serves people with developmental disabilities in a house setting. I'm running because I grew up in this community. And after 30 years of watching a lot of what's happened in our community, I have to say a lot of the systemic problems that we face today haven't been solved. We haven't tackled them properly at their root core causes. And so they come back. Things like systemic racism, generational poverty, drug addiction, homelessness. I have the advanced training and experience necessary to be a strong advocate for my neighbors. And more than that, the passion to see solutions happen for them. I hope to be a force for good in our community. We deserve to raise our children and grandchildren in a community that values dignity and empathy, and that sees local government as a force for good. If you'd like to find out more, please look me up at VoteHumphrey2020 on Facebook or email me at votehumphrey2020@gmail.com. I look forward to a wonderful discussion tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Rector, and I currently serve as an elected member of the Republican Party, serving the Champaign County Board as a representative of District 5. As my opponent said, District 5 is basically west of Duncan, north of Old Church, and then curves around and up through and includes Dobbins Downs. I was born and raised in Champaign. I attended Westview Grade School, Jefferson Middle School, and graduated from Champaign Centennial High School. I was a member of Youth Club at First Presbyterian Church and became an Eagle Scout. I attended Eastern Illinois University and received a BS in business and a master's degree in business administration. My father and 3 uncles served with courage and commitment during World War II so we could have the freedoms we have today. They served our country. My father grew up on South Birch in Urbana. What did my grandmother and grandfather do when their sons were serving? They boarded up their house and went to Akron, Ohio to work in the glider factory. I'm married, have been active in business and CU for over 30 years. I founded Rector Insurance Agency, which I own with my 3 sons. I have 3 adult sons who live in Champaign with their families. They actively serve our community personally and professionally. I've been a member of Champaign West Rotary for 31 years, served 20 years on the Champaign County Sheriff's Merit Commission, has served for almost 5 years on the Champaign County Board, and was a founding member of Safe House. I care about our community. I've worked on several referendums to help our community. I fought hard to get the nursing home sold. It took way too long, but we finally got it done. It had several delays because of partisanship, but we finally got it done. I'm fiscally conservative and socially responsible. As part of my commitment to the county board, I've provided leadership by serving as vice chair of policy and personnel. I'm board liaison for the Veterans Assistance Commission and a committee member of the Facilities Committee. If reelected, I will continue to provide strong leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rector. Our first question is for you. What are your biggest challenges facing the board as a whole in 2021, and how would you address these issues?
So there's 2 major issues on the table right now in 2021 and going forward the next 3 or 4 years. And those 2 issues are budget and dollars and facilities. We know, as people have mentioned in the earlier forums, and we all know revenues are going to be down. And so the county is going to have to budget for that. And we've asked the departments to go ahead and do some 3% and 4% cuts in their departments. It's hard to cut budgets. The reason it's hard to cut budgets, I think the number is like 75% of the budget is personnel and benefits. So it's hard to cut those kind of things. It's going to be tough decisions for all the people that run those departments. Additionally, we have 22 buildings that we've done a horrible job on deferred maintenance just because we haven't had the money. We need to allocate dollars to keep those buildings safe, keep them good for the employees. You know, if a roof leaks and the rest of the building gets ruined. So anyway, budget and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what are the biggest challenges facing the board as a whole in 2021, and how would you address these issues?
I think I definitely agree with kind of both of those focal points. Our facilities budget is in a really dark place right now. We feel this kind of compounding problem where every year we're seeing things like the satellite jail / the downtown jail adding on an extra, chunk of percentage each year. I think ultimately we're going to have to treat our budget like a Jenga tower. We're going to have to look at what can we possibly remove without jeopardizing at-risk and vulnerable communities and without risking the programs that we really care about. And that's not going to be an easy thing. It's certainly not going to be an easy thing for a Democrat or the Republicans. I also think we need to look specifically at how we can challenge our preconceptions on how we can respond to COVID. We've lost a lot of businesses in the last year, and I hope that we can arrange some sort of way to incentivize them to come back, and we can work together on both sides and find a way to make sure that we recover from this COVID disaster.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what are the specific issues regarding your district, and how would you address them?
Well, beyond just the scope that we've seen from our budgetary problems, right now our district and the adjoining districts are suffering from another wave of violence. And this goes back to when I was a kid. I remember being 10 years old and just 3 or 4 houses down the street on William Street around the corner, there was gun violence. And I think it goes back to the fact that we need to start addressing our problems at their root source. We have a poverty problem. We have an addiction problem. We have a homelessness problem. And the only way we can start tackling those problems is by allocating resources and being strategic about it. It's not going to be easy. And obviously our budgetary problems and COVID complicate that a lot. But eventually we are going to recover. We are going to come back strong from this crisis. And we are going to have an opportunity to put into place measures and policies and programs and alliances and partnerships that can benefit our community.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, what are the specific issues regarding your district, and how would you address them?
The issues for my district are the same for every resident of Champaign County. And I'm coming up on 5 years on this board. And I've never seen the frustration that people have with the people that were elected for the countywide offices the last time around. Dustin Herman's the exception. Dustin Herman is a rock star. He's a great sheriff. He's done a fabulous job. He goes to his work every day. It doesn't matter if he's an RD, and the man does his job. But my friends who have had their tax payments taken out of their checking account and they don't even own the house anymore are not happy. My constituents in my district and my constituents throughout the county that have paid their property taxes, and they go online and they see that they're showing not paid, are not happy. I've spent more time with constituents in the last 2 months than the last almost 4.5 years. So what we need to do is take care of our constituents. We need to elect good people for those countywide positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, the next question is for you. What are your qualifications to be county board member?
So like my opponent, I grew up in this town. I care immensely about this community. I know he does too. That's why he's running. Props to him for doing this. We need more people to be involved in county government and city government and the commissions. My track record speaks for itself. I've spent my entire career in the professional world here in Champaign, but I've shown my commitment to this community. I served 20 years on the Champaign County Sheriff's Merit Commission. I did 10 duck races for the Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club. I was a founding member of Safe House, where, as we've alluded to, we need to take care of our people that have addiction problems. Success of Safe House was incredible. Get people off alcohol and drugs, give them a little bit of Jesus, and it worked. So I'm all about more programs for our community. I've served this community. I've committed to this community. It's a great community. Yeah, we've got issues we all need to work together on, and we can work together on that. My track record proves that I have the leadership to continue to serve on county board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what are your qualifications to be county board member?
Well, beyond being a fledgling political scientist and a community organizer, I would like to mention also that one of the beautiful things about our county board is that it is a very diverse county board, and it has the opportunity to use that diversity to its benefit. I work in the developmental services role right now, working with people with developmental disabilities. And prior to COVID hitting, I was also pretty much spending every free hour working at Cunningham Township, doing homeless advocacy and working on housing advocacy. I think that experience and my experience running campaigns and working in the nonprofit campaign world has given me a great insight into how we can solve problems. My experience has always been about doing. It's never been about talking about it. It's never been about analyzing it. My political science background has always been about getting involved and taking action.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what is your position on asking the voters to change the 3 county elected positions, auditor, coroner, and recorder, from being elected to appointed?
I would be really interested in hearing what state legislation has to say about that. I know there's definitely some conversations to be had about that. For me personally, I appreciate that we have an elected coroner, although I understand the logic behind not wanting it to be an elected position. I also understand the logic behind not wanting an auditor. But at the end of the day, an appointed person is just as partisan as a non-appointed person, because the people doing the appointed are partisan. So we're still going to have a lot of that mixed in there. I also believe that we could probably get rid of the recorder's office. It's outdated. It doesn't need to be there. We are a very small minority of counties in Illinois that currently have a recorder's office, and I think it could be melded into the county clerk's office. And I apologize because you can hear the neighbor's dogs right now. But yes, I think we could definitely merge that particular role, and we should keep the other ones because the voters do deserve a right to have a choice on that.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, what is your position on asking the voters to change the 3 county elected positions, auditor, coroner, and recorder, from being elected to appointed?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, yeah, there's some statutorial things. Either the board would have to make it a referendum, or we'd have to get X thousands of signatures on a petition to get it on the ballot. So ultimately, like my opponent said, that has to go out for referendum to be changed. Mark Sheldon has done a fabulous job running as the Recorder of Deeds office. It is the only office that actually totally covers their expenses by the revenue generated. And he's done a fabulous job. So should that be elected or appointed? I don't know. It's, you know, as my opponent said, it's still bipartisan, whether you appoint it or you elect it. The most important thing is to get qualified candidates. And that's what we have to do. Again, last election, treasurer, perfect example. We had an unqualified person elected as treasurer. So it's all about getting the best candidates to serve this county. And it's something I'd be willing to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, if these positions were no longer elected, how would you recommend assigning the responsibilities of these offices?
You know, again, I think we both addressed that. No matter what, it's partisan, and it would be nice in a perfect world to make it nonpartisan, but it's still going to be partisan. So there's job duties, there's qualifications. Again, the coroner's job, you know, you should have a certain level of experience. You should have a certain level of knowledge to run the county clerk's office, to be the treasurer. So they should all have minimum qualifications as far as education and experience and leadership. So if we could quantify some of that stuff through a job evaluation and pick qualified candidates and make sure they have the credentials and the background, you know, again, elected, appointed, I'm just all about getting the right people in those spots. You know, there's certain departments that are mandated by the state of Illinois, and we have to have good people there. And we failed on that a little bit in the last couple of years.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, if these positions were no longer elected, how would you recommend assigning the responsibilities of these offices?
Well, like mentioned before, especially in the case of the recorder would be an easy fit to combine with the county clerk's office. And that's already happened in a lot of counties across the state. As for coroner, I mean, that's a medical examiner that could take that up, but it would still be very difficult to make that transition. And there's a reason why traditionally we have had elected coroners in Illinois. But I would certainly want to make sure the most qualified people got involved. And it would certainly be something that I would hope the county board would still take a very active role in.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, the next question is for you. It's kind of long, so listen closely. What is your position on maintaining the county elected executive form of government as opposed to changing to a county-wide elected board chair with county administrator hired by the county board to run day-to-day operations of the county?
So, you know, this all goes back to the most recent history we've had where this idea that was kind of put out from the Chamber of Commerce about having a county executive, it's kind of backfired in a lot of ways. And even I'm willing to admit that this was not very well hashed out. There are a lot of rules and concepts of power that we didn't put into place that we really wish we had, because even now we have people suing other people and disputes over how appointments work. And that's very frustrating to the voters who are already worrying about another million things. Ultimately, I think that we should stay the course for a while longer. This has been one term for the executive, and it could be it's a personality mismatch. It could be that we just need to hash out those roles and figure it out better. Going back is going to be a whole nother step process. And I know obviously voters have a lot on their plate, both in this election and in the next one. So I think we should be careful about jumping back the moment we feel like something is wrong, because growing pains happen, and this may just very well be more growing pains.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, I'm going to reread the same question. What is your position on maintaining the county elected executive form of government as opposed to changing to a county-wide elected board chair with county administrator hired by the county board to run day-to-day operations of the county?
Yeah, another tough question. It did not work. It is not working. I don't know when you say, okay, it didn't work and we stop. So, the position's there for another 2 years. Again, it would take a referendum to change that. It maybe could have worked if there weren't the personality issues or the lack of ability to gain trust and communication between the Ds and with Darlene in that position. So I don't know if it's the position or the unwillingness of people to work together. So, a few more new people on the county board here in December. I mean, my opponent has a good point. Maybe we let it ride out and see if we can all work together. We should all be working together. I mean, that's been the biggest problem in the county board the 4.5 years I've been on there. Way too many times it goes to partisanship. Got to work together for the best of this county.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, the county will adopt new maps for county board districts through redistricting in 2021. What is your position on appointing a neutral and nonpartisan commission to develop this reapportionment redistricting plan for adoption by the county board?
Again, that's another fabulous idea and probably totally unrealistic. To the best of my knowledge, any map that's ever been created in the state of Illinois or anywhere to try to make things fair is done in a bipartisan way. So I love the idea of it. I think it would be great if we could do that. I think it's a dream to think that we can actually do that in a bipartisan way. If we could do that and make the appointments and have that happen, I'm all for it. Again, if the county board's controlled by the Ds and not the Rs, are they willing to do that? If it's the other way around, would the Rs be willing to do it? I don't know. But yeah, you're totally right. That's the way it should be. I would love to see that happen. I just don't think that's realistic to think that that would happen, but I would love to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, the county will adopt new maps. Did I give you this question already?
No, I haven't had this one yet.
Okay, okay, got confused for a minute.
Getting late.
Adopt new maps for county board districts through redistricting in 2021. What is your position on appointing a neutral and nonpartisan commission to develop this reapportionment redistricting plan for adoption by the county board?
I would really hope in a perfect world we could reach a consensus on such an appointment. But like before, the people appointing will be partisan. So it's going to be very difficult to find that out. But I would like to take this opportunity to ask anybody who's viewing this and anybody who views this later, please fill out your census. What we're talking about right now is centered around that census, and a lot of issues and important things for our taxpayers are centered around that census. And right now we're somewhere between like 60 and 70% filled out, maybe even worse. And we as a county deserve to be counted. So please, whether you live in St. Joe or you live in Champaign, please fill out that census, because when we talk about, redistricting or reapportioning or anything like that, it doesn't work very well if you don't get counted. So please take the time to go online and fill out that census.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, the next question is for you. What is your position on closing the downtown correctional center and providing the appropriate remodeling and facility upgrades to house all county correctional required operations under one roof at the current satellite jail?
I think you're going to find a brief moment of bipartisan agreement. I think we've all kind of toured the jails and been like, you know what, the downtown jail, it's not salvageable. It is a health hazard and it is a suing hazard. I hope that we can reach a consensus around the satellite jail. I really hope it can happen soon, despite all of our financial troubles. For me personally, I would really like to see a program-centric approach to the satellite jail. I know in viewing and talking to experts and going around the satellite jail that we could focus more on segregated kind of smaller cell blocks, so that fewer cells, but they're easier to separate for things like COVID, for things like having inmates fighting each other. That is so important. And it lets us have fewer cells and dedicate more hours and more money to programs that can end recidivism. And I think that's ultimately got to be the goal of any jail reform. It's got to be fighting for ending more recidivism.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, what is your position on closing the downtown correctional center and providing the appropriate remodeling and facility upgrades to house all county correctional required operations under one roof at the current satellite jail?
Yeah, it's a major issue. And again, my opponent and I probably agree on more things than we disagree on, but I totally agree with what he said. I've been in that jail. It is embarrassing. I'm concerned for our inmates. I'm concerned for our staff. It's old, it's antiquated, it's nasty, it's dirty, it's horrible. So yeah, we can't keep it going. Also, we signed an agreement with Department of Justice for some ADA work, $180,000. You don't want to spend $180,000 on a building you're going to get rid of. The roof leaks, the generators together with baling wire. Dustin Herman has a great plan. Problem is, it takes lots of money. When we close that, if we close that, we have separation issues at the satellite jail. You have bad person A, bad person B, bad person C. They have to be separated. The current design of the satellite jail doesn't allow that to happen. So we need to reconfigure, but we need a solution. Dustin's going to have a solution. And as my opponent said, we need bipartisanship to hold hands and get this thing fixed.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, are you aware of the criminal justice system assessment done for Champaign County in 2013 concerning the jail, but also a comprehensive review of the whole system?
Yeah, I've heard it referred to different times. I think Kalmanoff was the author of that, and it was a study. I mean, there's so many issues now that we all need to work together and fix. So yes, we need to do some creative things. You know, the programs that are reducing recidivism are working. Are they worth the money? Well, you know, if you keep 5 people from going back to jail and they can work and support their families and help the community, then yeah, I'm all for doing programs for that. The other thing that the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, and we talk about, is mental health. State of Illinois closed down like 55,000 inpatient mental health beds in the last 10 years. So besides these jail issues and separation, we have to find a building and funding and people to take care of our people that have mental health issues. They don't deserve to be in jail. They don't need to be in jail. So we have to find a way for a building for that to go along with the new jail when and if we close the downtown jail.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, are you aware of the criminal justice system assessment done for Champaign County in 2013 concerning the jail, but also a comprehensive review of the whole system?
Yeah, I've kind of read through it and listened to a lot of the people talk about it. But what's really scary is that it's outdated now. We are in 2020, and COVID was not a factor then. And you know, our facilities budget has expanded well beyond some of the projections made, as well as some of the recommendations. And my opponent is definitely right. I think in this community, we have some wonderful programs with RPC, with Rosecrans, that help with mental health, that help with homeless problems, that help with housing problems. But I also think that we should be focusing as well to support the jail programs to end recidivism by diversifying those efforts. You know, I work a lot with people who are homeless, who have suffered and tried to work with Rosecrans, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out. We need diversity of services because honestly, putting all our eggs in one basket at this time, COVID has proven that's not a good idea. If something were to happen at my work or to happen at any other program, our people need options to get the care they need to get themselves back on the right track.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what more do you think should be done to address structural racism in county government and the courts?
Well, I think, you know, this is a very important conversation to have at this time. I think we've seen a lot of conversation about Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter. But ultimately, going back to my original pitch, a lot of these problems come from root core problems that have been in our community for years. I can remember growing up and my grandma talking about the race riots when she was a kid. This is not a new problem. We have systemic racism problems. We have redlining problems. We have discrimination and bank loaning and housing problems. And some of those aren't very easy to track or very easy to see, especially for somebody that looks like me or Rector. But it's there nonetheless. And we have an obligation as a county board, regardless of our makeup, to try and address them. And I think we can do that through policy. A lot of that happens at the city level, but we can have amazing partnerships with our cities, Champaign, Urbana, St. Joe, Mahomet, et cetera, to actually put into place discrimination protections, to put into place policies, to maybe look at reparations and what that means for a community that has legalized marijuana. These are all great things that we can put into place, and we can still support the Black Lives Matter movement doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, what more do you think should be done to address the structural racism in county government and the courts?
You know, these are the kind of things I think about all the time as I have conversations with a lot of different people. And as my opponent said, there's a lot of different factors that contribute to this. And so here's what I'd like to see our community do. And I think a big part of the problem, or one of those things, is education for the lower income and the kids of all colors. And I'd like to see the cities and the county and Unit 4 and Unit 116. We have all these churches that are not used after school. And I think we need to get people of all shapes, sizes, and colors and work with these at-risk kids and help them with the education. From kindergarten to 5th grade, we need these kids reading at the right reading level. And no disrespect if their parents aren't helping them, but if they can't get it done in school, kids have to learn how to read. If you get to 7th grade and you can't read the textbook, it's not going to work. So we need to focus, in my mind, that would be a great way, everybody working together on education of all at-risk youth.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, the budget is going to be very difficult for the next couple of years due to COVID. If the budget must be cut to balance it, how would you propose to make those cuts, and what would you cut?
Well, you know, each elected official gets their amount of dollars for their part. So circuit clerk has her money, clerk has his money, treasurer, recorder of deeds. I mean, all they can do is cut by 3 or 4%. I mean, that's all there is. And I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of fluff in that budget. I mean, the state mandates that we have those different departments to serve the residents of Champaign County. So we can ask each of them to cut 3 or 4%, but anything more than that, it's gonna be people. Nobody wants to cut loose people. I don't want to cut loose people. Those people have worked hard. They work hard for the county. But when 75% of the budget, and I think that's a number, I'll have to go back and look it up. I believe 75% of the budget is personnel and benefits. So there's not a lot of room to cut in those kind of things. Again, we're providing the mandated services. We're doing some programs, you know, the Veterans Assistance Commission, the recidivism. You know, we do a lot of really, really good things. So I don't want to cut programs. So if it's not programs, then we got to cut people.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, the budget is going to be very difficult for the next couple of years due to COVID. If the budget must be cut to balance it, how will you propose to make those cuts, and what will you cut?
You know, my opponent is right on the money in saying there's no gold bullet for this. We're not going to magically find something really convenient and easy to cut. And like I mentioned before, we have to treat it like a Jenga tower. We have to look at the situation of each program and who they serve and what purpose they serve, and say, if this goes away, if I pull the wrong block at the wrong time, who will suffer? This community has to survive this, and it will. But it's going to take a lot of critical thinking, especially when it comes to facilities, when it comes to staff, when it comes to the benefits we give staff. And I will always fight for our staff, and I will always fight to get them the best benefits possible to make their jobs competitive and make it worth serving this wonderful county. But it is going to be some very difficult times ahead. And I think as a county board member, I want to be actively involved in looking at those solutions and trying to figure out how do we best serve this community while still making sure that we stay on the rails. My hope is that we can find ways to look at our tax code. There are a lot of options ahead of us, things that haven't been discussed tonight that possibly will come into play, whether we want them to or not. And I hope we can start having those discussions come next year.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, what else should voters know as they consider their votes for you?
Well, some interesting tidbits about me. So I'm very dedicated to protecting our community from COVID. In my work this past year, I volunteered to live for 60 days, about 1,300 consecutive hours, without leaving or clocking out except to sleep at a group home for those with developmental disabilities. And I have that kind of dedication in everything I do. In 2012, I spent 3 months living in supporter housing, fighting for marriage equality for LGBT couples. And in 2011, I interned with AFSCME Council 31, and my favorite project was one where we protected vouchers that go to our teachers and their family members in our community at the U of I. If that program had gone under, this community would have been devastated. So voters have a very clear picture of me, I hope, as somebody who is dedicated to putting in the work, dedicated to protecting our community and protecting at-risk and vulnerable members of our community. I have a proven record for fighting things that matter, and I hope that that counts for something.
Thank you. Mr. Rector, what else should voters know about you as they consider their votes?
Thank you. Yeah, I've lived my whole life for community service. I've always had jobs. I spent time in banking. I was marketing director at the airport. I was in broadcast TV, but it's like, I've never gone to bed hungry, and I've never gone to bed cold. And I feel really blessed for that. So, you know, I've been doing One Winter Night for See You at Home for several years. I run for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I've been doing that for 9 years. I lost a brother to leukemia when I was 10. So that's one way I give back. Again, the first 10 duck races for the Don Moyer Boys and Girls Club. Cunningham Children's Home is like a real gem in this community. It's a privilege to serve on the advancement committee there. I'm a member of Rotary for 31 years. I mean, I'm committed to making Champaign-Urbana the best place it can be. I raised my sons here, my 2 grandchildren live here. And for me, serving on the community county board is just a privilege, and it's community service for me.
Thank you. Each of you will have 5 minutes to do your closing statement. Mr. Rector, we'll start with you.
Is it 5 minutes or 1 minute? I'm sorry.
2. Is it 5 or 1, John? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
2. Okay,
We could do 5.
I only prepared for 1, so anyway, thank you. First of all, to my opponent, he did a nice job. I love to see people getting involved in our community. As I said earlier, we need more people to do it. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette for hosting this forum tonight. It's actually fun. I wish we were all there in person, but we're not. So this is the next best thing. I've served on the Champaign County Board for almost 56 months. I've been contacted by constituents more in the last 2 months than the prior 54 months. I get calls from people all over Champaign County, not just District 5. I serve the entirety of Champaign County. People call me because they are frustrated with the fact that their tax bill is still shown as unpaid. They're frustrated with zoning issues and Champaign County public health. They're frustrated that mailings go out of offices with wrong zip codes and words misspelled. I'm fiscally conservative and socially responsible. I was endorsed by the Champaign County Farm Bureau Political Involvement Committee today, and previously I was endorsed by the Champaign County Business Empowered PAC. It's a privilege for me to serve the voters of Champaign County. If you live in District 5, please vote for me, John Rector, on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Humphrey, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Well, thank you again to John Rector for being here tonight, and thank you to the NAACP, the News Gazette, and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I'd like to kind of sacrifice my closing statement and instead focus on a very serious and important topic. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I've lost a lot of friends over the year in this community over to suicide, so this hits very deeply to me. My campaign motto for this entire year has been, "We rise by lifting others up." And I'd like the chance to prove my dedication to that philosophy by serving you. But right now, we have all been through one hell of a year. Many of us are unemployed, behind on bills, stressed out, trying to educate our children from home, and feeling very isolated. The emotional impact that COVID-19 has had on you is real, and your pain is very valid. Please, if you are feeling hopeless, you're behind on rent, you need help finding mental health or addiction services, or you need help finding other resources available to you, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me an email at votehumphrey2020@gmail.com. It doesn't have to be about my campaign or politics, no matter what district you live in. And if you or anyone you know have been experiencing suicidal thoughts or depression, I want you to call this number, 217-359-4141. Again, that's 217-359-4141. It's the local crisis hotline, or you can text 741-741. This is a community that cares, and I promise you, you are not alone. Thank you for your time tonight. I hope I have earned your confidence and your trust, and that you plan on voting for Jordan Humphrey for Champaign County Board District 5 on or before November 3rd. Please stay healthy, take care of one another, check on one another, and have a great night. And I hope to see you on Election Day.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media for sponsoring this forum. To the timer, Ms. Michelle Cooper has kept us on schedule. A very special thank you to Jonna Van Behrens, who put this series of forums together. Just a reminder, it is not too late to register to vote. Information is available on the League website and the County Clerk's website. Please vote. Have a great evening.